and welcome to Books of Blood. My name is John, and today horror across America rolls into New York. Alright, so the last couple of videos I've done, I've taken 2 or 3 states and combined them because I maybe had 3 books for this state, maybe 5 for this state, or whatever, That is not the case with New York. In fact, I actually thought about dividing this video up into 2 parts because I think it's going to be kind of long, so I hope you guys will be patient with me. The reason I didn't break it up is because A, I'm lazy, and B, we're talking about New York. And nobody does anything small in New York. So that being said, let's go ahead and get underway with the books. Alright, so first up, and let me get this to the beginning. My thing turned, rotated on my phone. First up, we have got Come Closer, and this is by Sarah Gran. I have read this one. I highly recommend this one, okay? A recurrent, unidentifiable noise in her apartment, a memo to her boss that's replaced by obscene insults. Amanda, a successful architect in a happy marriage, finds her life going off-kilter by degrees. She starts smoking again, and one night for no reason, without even the knowledge that she's doing it, she burns her husband with a cigarette. At night she dreams of a beautiful woman with pointed teeth on the shore of a blood-red sea. The new voice in Amanda's head, the one that tells her to steal things and talk to strange men in bars, is strange and frightening, and Amanda struggles to wrest back control of her life. Is she possessed by a demon, or is she simply insane? And that is Come Closer, and that is by Sarah Gran. Okay. Next up we have got Ghost Story, and this is by Peter Straub. What was the worst thing you've ever done? In the sleepy town of Milburn, New York, 4 old men gathered to tell each other stories. Some true, some made up, all of them frightening. A simple pastime to divert themselves from their quiet lives. But one story is coming back to haunt them and their small town. A tale of something they did long ago. A wicked mistake. A horrifying accident. And they are about to learn that no one can bury the past forever. And that is Ghost Story, and that is by Peter Straub. Okay, number 3, we have We Need to Talk About Kevin, and this is by Lionel Shriver. I haven't read the book. I saw the movie. I love the movie. Thought Tilda Swinton was fantastic in it, and of course, Elijah. Oh my gosh, I'm getting his name. I know I'm messing his name up. I am so sorry for that. He's going to be the Flash. Alright, anyway. Eva never really wanted to be a mother, and certainly not the mother of a boy who ends up murdering 7 of his fellow high school students, a cafeteria worker and a much-adored teacher who tried to befriend him, all 2 days before his 16th birthday. Now, 2 years later, it is time for her to come to terms with marriage, career, family, parenthood, and Kevin's horrific rampage. In a series of startlingly direct correspondences with her estranged husband, Franklin. Uneasy with the sacrifices and social demotion of motherhood from the start, Eva fears that her alarming dislike for her own son may be responsible for driving him so nihilistically off the rails. And that is We Need to Talk About Kevin, and that is by Lionel Shriver. Okay, next we have The Pretty Ones, and this is by Anya Alborn. New York, 1977, the sweltering heat of the summer of Sam. The entire city is gripped with fear, but all Nell Sullivan worries about is whether or not she'll ever make a friend. The self-proclaimed Plain Jane does her best to fit in with the girls at work, but Nell's brother Barrett assures her that she'll never be like them. When Nell manages to finally garner some much yearned-for attention, the unthinkable happens to her newfound friend. The office pool blames Son of Sam, but Nell knows the awful truth, because doing the devil's work is easy when there's already a serial killer on the loose. And that is The Pretty Ones, and that is by Anya Alborn. Number 5, we have got The Devil in Silver, and this is by Victor Lavalle. Pepper is a rambunctious big man, minor league troublemaker, working-class hero in his own mind, and suddenly the surprised inmate of a budget-strapped mental institution in Queens, New York. He's not mentally ill, but that doesn't seem to matter. He is accused of a crime he can't quite square with his memory. In the darkness of his room on his first night, he's visited by a terrifying creature with the body of an old man and the head of a bison who nearly kills him before being hustled away by the hospital staff. It's no delusion. The other patients confirm that a hungry devil roams the hallways when the sun goes down. Pepper rallies 3 other inmates in a plot to fight back. Dory, an octogenarian schizophrenic who's been on the ward for decades and knows all its secrets. Coffee, an African immigrant with severe OCD, who tries desperately to send alarms to the outside world. And Lucci, a bipolar teenage girl who acts as the group's enforcer. Battling the pill-pushing staff, one another, and their own minds, they try to kill the monster that's stalking them. But can the devil die? The Devil in Silver brilliantly brings together the compelling themes that spark all of Victor Lavalle's radiant fiction. Faith, race, class, madness, and our relationship with the unseen and the uncanny. More than that, it's a thrilling, suspenseful work of literary horror about friendship, love, and the courage to slay our own demons. And that is The Devil in Silver by Victor Lavalle. Okay, next up we've got The Worm and His Kings by Haley Piper. New York City, 1990. When you slip through the cracks, no one is there to catch you. Monique learns that the hard way after her girlfriend Donna vanishes without a trace. Only after the disappearances of several other impoverished women does Monique hear the rumors. A taloned monster stalks the city's underground and snatches victims into the dark. Donna isn't missing, she was taken. To save the woman she loves, Monique must descend deeper than the known underground into a subterranean world of enigmatic cultists and shadowy creatures. But what she finds looms beyond her wildest fears, a darkness that stretches from the dawn of time and across the stars. And that is The Worm and His Kings by Haley Piper. Okay, number 7, we have got The Fisherman, and I have read this one. I love this one. This is a fantastic book. It is a slow burn, but I highly recommend it. Anyway, in upstate New York and the woods around Woodstock, Dutchman's Creek flows out of the Ashokan Reservoir. Steep banked, fast moving, it offers the promise of fine fishing and of something more, a possibility too fantastic to be true. When Abe and Dan, 2 widowers who have found solace in each other's company and a shared passion for fishing, hear rumors of the creek and what might be found there, the remedy to both their losses, they dismiss it as just another fish story. Soon, though, the men find themselves drawn into a tale as deep and old as the reservoir. It's a tale of dark pacts, of long-buried secrets, and of a mysterious figure known as Der Fischer, the fisherman. It will bring Abe and Dan face to face with all that they have lost and with the price they must pay to regain it. And that is The Fisherman, and that is by John Langdon. All right, number 8, we got The Lesser Dead, and this by Christopher Buehlman. The secret is, vampires are real, and I am one. The secret is, I'm stealing from you what is mostly yours, and I'm not sorry. New York City in 1978 is a dirty, dangerous place to live and die. Joey Peacock knows this as well as anybody. He's spent the last 40 years as an adolescent vampire, perfecting the routine he now enjoys, womanizing in punk clubs and discotheques, feeding by night and sleeping by day with others of his kind in the macabre labyrinth under the city's sidewalks. The subways are his playground and his highway, shuttling him throughout Manhattan to bleed the unsuspecting in the sheep meadow of Central Park, or in the back seats of checker cabs, or even those in their own apartments who are too hypnotized by sitcoms to notice him opening their windows. It's almost too easy. Until one night he sees them hunting on his beloved subway, the children with the merry eyes, vampires like him or not like him, whatever they are, whatever their appearance means, the undead in the tunnels of Manhattan are not as safe as they once were, and neither are the rest of us. and that is The Lesser Dead, and that is by Christopher Buehlman. Okay. All right, next up we have got Rosemary's Baby, and this is by Ira Levin, of course. Rosemary Woodhouse and her struggling actor husband Guy move into the Bramford, an old New York City apartment building with an ominous reputation and mostly elderly residents. Neighbors Roman and Minnie Castavats soon come nosing around to welcome the Woodhouses to the building. And despite Rosemary's reservations about their eccentricity and the weird noises that she keeps hearing, her husband takes a shine to them. Shortly after Guy lands a plum Broadway role, Rosemary becomes pregnant, and the Castavets start taking a special interest in her welfare. As the sickened Rosemary becomes increasingly isolated, she begins to suspect that the Castavet circle is not what it seems. And that is Rosemary's Baby, and that is by Ira Levin. And that is one of those books, Rosemary's Baby is just one of those books that I just automatically, you can't help but associate this with New York, especially New York City. I mean, to me, I think it is maybe the quintessential New York horror novel. All right? Anyway, number 10. Number 10, we have got Final Girls, and this is by Riley Sager. 10 years ago, 6 friends went on vacation. One made it out alive. In that instant, college student Quincy Carpenter became a member of a very exclusive club, a group of survivors the press dubbed the Final Girls. Lisa, who lost 9 sorority sisters to a college dropout's knife. Sam, who endured the sack man during her shift at the Nightlight Inn. And now Quincy, who began bleeding through the woods to escape the massacre at Pine Cottage. Despite the media's attempts, the 3 girls have never met. Now Quincy is doing well, maybe even great, thanks to her Xanax prescription. She has a caring almost fiancé, a popular baking blog, a beautiful apartment, and a therapeutic presence in Coop, a police officer who saved her life. Her mind won't let her recall the events of that night. The past is in the past, until the first final girl is found dead in her bathtub, and the second final girl appears on Quincy's doorstep. Blowing through Quincy's life like a hurricane, Sam seems intent on making her relive the trauma of her ordeal. When disturbing details about Lisa's death emerge, Quincy desperately tries to unravel Sam's truths from her lies while evading both the police and bloodthirsty reporters. Quincy knows that in order to survive, she has to remember what really happened at Pine Cottage. Because the only thing worse than being a final girl is being a dead one. And I'm not really sure why I included this one. I could have swore I read that the part of it takes place in New York, and I said, all right, I don't think it takes place entirely in New York, but a good bit of it does. I think her apartment is in New York, all right? So if it doesn't, I'm sorry. All right, next up we have got The Strain, and this is by Chuck Hogan and Guillermo del Toro. And this is a very short synopsis, okay? So I'm not going to have the picture showing up for very long. That's why I'm kind of talking right now, to give it a little more time to stay up so you guys can see the cover or whatever. A vampiric virus infects New York and spreads outward, threatening the city and then the world as a CDC doctor and a Holocaust survivor fight to save humanity. And that is The Strain, and that is by Chuck Hogan and Guillermo del Toro. And did you guys watch the Strain miniseries? I watched the first season, and I never got around to watching the second season. I kind of enjoyed it, so I may have to go back and watch it again. I think it was 3 seasons, am I right? Anyway, all right. All right, next up, number 12, we've got The Ballad of Black Tom, and this is by Victor Lavalle. People move to New York looking for magic, and nothing will convince them it isn't there. Charles Thomas Tester hustles to put food on the table, keeping the roof over his father's head. From Harlem to Flushing Meadows to Red Hook, he knows what magic a suit can cast, the invisibility a guitar case can provide, and the curse written on his skin that attracts the eye of wealthy white folks and their cops. But when he delivers an occult tome to a reclusive sorceress in the heart of Queens, Tom opens the door to a deeper realm of magic and earns the attention of things best left sleeping. A storm that might swallow the world is building in Brooklyn. Will Black Tom live to see it break? and that is The Ballad of Black Tom, and that is by Victor Lavalle. Right. Okay, next up, there is no way I could not talk about books that are set in New York without talking about American Psycho, and this is by Bret Easton Ellis. I never read the book. I love the movie. Christian Bale is freaking awesome as Patrick Bateman. Anyway, Patrick Bateman moves among the young and trendy in 1980s Manhattan. Young, handsome, and well-educated, Bateman earns his fortune on Wall Street by day while spending his nights in ways we cannot begin to fathom. Expressing his true self through torture and murder, Bateman prefigures an apocalyptic horror that no society could bear to confront. And that is American Psycho, and that is by Bret Easton Ellis. Alright, moving on, number 14, we've got The Saturday Night Ghost Club by Craig Davidson. Excuse me. Growing up in 1980s Niagara Falls, a seedy but magical, slightly haunted place, Jake Baker spends most of his time with his Uncle Calvin, a kind but eccentric enthusiast of occult artifacts and conspiracy theories. The summer Jake turns 12, he befriends a pair of siblings new to town, and so Calvin decides to initiate them all into the Saturday Night Ghost Club. But as the summer goes on, what begins as a seemingly light-hearted project may ultimately uncover more than any of its members had imagined. With the alternating warmth and sadness of the best coming-of-age stories, the Saturday Night Ghost Club is a note-perfect novel that poignantly examines the haunting mutability of memory and storytelling, as well as the experiences that form the people we become, and establishes Craig Davidson as a remarkable literary talent. And that is The Saturday Night Ghost Club, and that is by Craig Davidson. Okay, number 15, we have got Bigfoot in the Bronx, and this is by Hunter Shea. The Hunt. It's hunting season for best friends Shay and Vito. This year, with the bad economy and Shay out of work, it's more important than ever to bag a deer so they can feed their families. Tucking their truck in their secret spot outside a state park in the Catskills, they settle down, waiting for a deer to come to them. Discovery. What they get is a giant creature that outruns a speeding deer and savages it with its bare hands and jagged teeth. Someone hidden in the woods shoots it with a tranquilizer dart. Shay knows what the beast at their feet is and how its discovery can change their lives forever. They load it in their truck and head home for the Bronx. The drugged Bigfoot awakens in a cramped shed in Shay's backyard. Confused, terrified, angry, it breaks loose in the middle of the night, seeking refuge in a nearby cemetery. When the bagpipes of a morning funeral drive it into a killing rage, the carnage has just begun. Rampage. From playgrounds to golf courses, apartment buildings to subway cars, the Bigfoot is on the move, and it's not happy. Can Shay and Vito find and recapture the beast before it burns the Bronx to the ground? And that is Bigfoot in the Bronx. That's by Hunter Shea. And I read this one, and I loved it. All right, you can tell by the smile on my face. Wow. Anyway. All right, next up, we have got Burnt Offerings, and this is by Robert Marasco. Ben and Mary and Rolf are desperate to escape a stifling summer in their tiny Brooklyn apartment. So when they get the chance to rent a mansion in upstate New York for the entire season for only $900, it's an offer that's too good to refuse. There's only one catch. Behind a strange and intricately carved door, in a distant wing of the house, lives elderly Mrs. Allardyce, and the Rolfs will be responsible for preparing her meals. But Mrs. Allardyce never seems to emerge from her room, and it soon becomes clear that something weird and terrifying is happening in the house. As the suspense builds towards a revelation of what really lies behind that locked door, the Rolfs will discover that their cheap vacation rental comes at a terrible cost. And that is Burnt Offerings, and that is by Robert Marasco. Alright, next we've got Cackle, and this is by Rachel Harrison. All her life, Annie has played it nice and safe. After being unceremoniously dumped by her longtime boyfriend, Annie seeks a fresh start. She accepts a teaching position that moves her from Manhattan to a small village upstate. She's stunned by how perfect and picturesque the town is. The people are all friendly and warm. Her new apartment is dreamy too, minus the oddly persistent spider infestation. Then Annie meets Sophie, beautiful, charming, magnetic Sophie, who takes a special interest in Annie, who wants to be her friend. More importantly, she wants Annie to stop apologizing and start living for herself. That's how Sophie lives. Annie can't help but gravitate toward the self-possessed Sophie, wanting to spend more and more time with her, despite the fact that the rest of the townsfolk seem a little afraid of her. And okay, there are some things. Sophie's appearance is uncanny and ageless. Her mansion in the middle of the woods feels a little unearthly, and she does seem to wield a certain power. But she couldn't be. Could she? And that is Cackle. That is by Rachel Harrison. Alright, next up we have got Wisteria Cottage, and this is by Robert M. Coates. To Florence Hackett and her daughters Eleanor and Louisa, Richard Ballry, a handsome young bookstore clerk and aspiring poet, seems a little odd but harmless enough. With his amusing conversation and his eager to please attitude, Richard works his way into the Hackett's confidence until he is almost one of the family. When he suggests they rent Wisteria Cottage, a charming seaside residence, it seems to promise a summer of pleasant companionship and fun. What the Hacketts don't know is that Richard is a deeply troubled individual, recently released from a mental institution, and that the relaxing summer holiday will soon turn into a terrifying nightmare. And that is Wisteria Cottage, and that is by Robert Coates. Alright, and next up we have got the Amityville Horror, and this is by Jay Anson. In December 1975, the Lutz family moved into their new home on suburban Long Island. George and Kathleen Lutz knew that 1 year earlier, Donald DeFeho had murdered his parents, brothers, and sisters in the house. But the property, complete with boathouse and swimming pool, and the price had been too good to pass up. 28 days later, the entire Lutz family fled in terror. This is the spellbinding, shocking, true story that gripped the nation about an American dream that turned into a nightmare beyond imagining. And according to the Kansas City Star, this book will scare the hell out of you. That is the Amityville Horror, and that is by Jay Anson. All right. And finally, we have got Later, and this is by Stephen King. Sometimes growing up means facing your demons. The son of a struggling single mother, Jamie Conklin just wants an ordinary childhood. But Jamie is no ordinary child. Born with an unnatural ability his mom urges him to keep secret, Jamie can see what no one else can see and learn what no one else can learn. But the cost of using this ability is higher than Jamie can imagine, as he discovers when an NYPD detective draws him into the pursuit of a killer who is threatened to strike from beyond the grave. Later is Stephen King at his finest, a terrifying and touching story of innocence lost and the trials that test our sense of right and wrong. With echoes of King's classic novel It, Later is a powerful, haunting, unforgettable exploration of what it takes to stand up to evil in all the faces it wears. And that is Later, and that is by Stephen King. And that is going to do it for Horror Across America, New York. I told you, this is going to be a big one, so sorry if it was a little bit too long for you guys. I hope you guys will watch it. If you don't, hey, that's on me, all right? Until next time, take care. Stay scared. Bye-bye.